have worked fairly hard to get this up and going, and we're very excited to be a part of it. It's actually part of a three-part series. Tonight we're going to be doing a short piece, and tomorrow morning we'll be doing another short piece, a completely different short play that will take place in another part of the gallery. That presentation is at 9:30, starts at 9:30 sharp a.m. tomorrow morning, so bring some coffee. And then we'll have a third performance on November 16th, that's a Wednesday, and that will be at 9:30 as well. And that will be a completely different performance in another part of the gallery with the background as another part of this installation. But this performance that you'll see tonight, you'll see two performers as they are here. You'll see Natoya Lambert over here on my left. She will be playing Tracy, and Mr. Lucas Ackerman here will be playing Ben. The title of this play is Aftermath, and as the play opens, it is in complete darkness.
Well.
Yes?
Should I get the...
No, better not.
Right.
Should I?
Are you hungry? I could...
No.
Oh.
I better get going.
Can you find your way?
Should
I get the... You have your coat?
It's right here.
I always liked that coat on you.
I would think so.
The color always brightened your eyes.
Did they need brightening?
That isn't what I... Shall I get the light?
No. No need to get up.
Right.
My eyes should brighten any moment now anyway.
They're bright on their own, too.
Did that sweater you got me last Christmas suck in my arm fat?
What?
What about that bracelet for Valentine's? Did it hide my arm blemishes?
Tracy, I don't...
I was just thinking there may have been a pattern.
There isn't.
Right.
Your eyes are lovely.
You think so?
They were always my... I just always noticed.
How are hers?
Good. Fine, I suppose.
You suppose?
I don't really know.
But you knew mine.
Ben turns on a lamp to reveal a messy bed where they had just slept together. Ben sits, and Tracy stands with a blue coat.
You shouldn't have. I was just going to leave.
You don't have to.
I think I do.
Why?
Because us. Do you really think we can make any of this work?
We did once.
And it fell apart. What's different now?
We are. I am. I know what I want now.
And that's me.
And that's you. We can make this work.
These aren't the sheets we bought together.
No, her mother picked them out.
And you like them.
I don't think of them much.
Oh.
Sit.
I'd rather not.
I miss you.
So you said.
I always thought again.
But we can't.
We did.
It's not the same.
It could be.
I know you think that right now, but what about a week from now? Or when you have to
It doesn't have to be complicated.
It already is.
Just sit down.
Where are they?
What?
The sheets. Our sheets.
The closet, I think. Maybe storage.
Do you think about them much?
The sheets?
They were old. It's no wonder you changed them.
She wanted to.
So did I, back then.
I let you.
Back when I was her, and there was a different me.
It's not like that. You're...
Different?
You could be.
I saw you two at the diner together a few days ago. I didn't say hello. I didn't feel the need, but I noticed that you weren't yourself at all. You talked to her the way you talk to bosses and parents, the way you talk into a voicemail, though you never left voicemail.
I didn't know you were there.
It didn't really matter if I was. Answer it. Go ahead.
Don't leave. Not just yet. Hey! Love what? No, I didn't. It wasn't me. I'm not trying to be funny. I really didn't. No, really. I don't think you should. I'm not feeling well. We'll talk later. Please, don't come over. I'll call you later. Yep. You too. Bye.
Seems like she was excited.
Someone sent her flowers.
I was just going.
They're not from me.
Should it matter?
They're not from me.
It would be uncharacteristic.
They're not.
Should they be?
I don't think so.
I think you should know.
I don't want to talk about her.
It's just that maybe you should reconsider.
Can you just forget about that for a second?
I mean, you've done things worthy of having to buy her flowers lately.
What are you trying to say?
It just adds up. I mean, who else would buy her flowers?
I told you it wasn't...
Are you worried she's cheating? That could be a sign, you know. Flowers.
I wish you would stop acting like this.
I know, you always tell me that, Ben.
Just calm down and stay for a while. Just come sit down.
Will you tell her?
What would I tell her?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well then, help me figure it out.
Help you.
Will you stay?
You should get her yellow carnations. They'll really brighten up her eyes.
Tracy leaves. Blackout, end of play.
Good. Can you hear me? Again, as John mentioned, my name is Danny Olda. I'm an arts writer based in Tampa, Florida. And we're going to be speaking with Tyanna Buie tonight and Vanessa Diaz, our two artists that created the exhibition we're in right now. Just as a brief introduction, Tyanna Buie, here to my left, received her MFA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She lives and works in Detroit right now and is assistant professor and section chair of printmaking at the College for Creative Studies. And Vanessa Diaz received her MFA from University of South Florida, and she currently works in West Palm Beach. So I guess a good place to start would be just how the exhibition was made. It's something that really, we spoke at length before the exhibition was even created, and something that really struck me was that you both were not only creating installations, what we're sitting in right now, but that you didn't set off one part of the gallery for one artist and another for the other artist, but decided to mesh your installations together. Can you talk about how that, what that was like actually physically creating that?
I'll start.
You'll start?
Sure. Okay, I talk louder normally, but, so I think, well, first of all, I think when John first talked about Vanessa and I working together, he was like, look at each other's work. And I was like, her work is totally opposite what I do, like at all. I was like, but also there's some links, so I was like, I'm interested to see how this will work out. So I came to Florida just to visit, and I checked out Vanessa's work in another space. And she has stuff hanging from ceiling, not afraid of heights, and I'm like, I work on paper and I'm terrified of heights, so how else is it gonna work? So I think we just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like my work versus her work. Like, how do you bridge that? I think that was the challenge.
Right.
Yeah, it was interesting, sort of the way that I generally work is I bring a lot of things into a space and I have a plan, but it happens on site a lot. So we had like a general plan of giving each of our work enough space to like some breathing room in between, but also that there was going to be some kind of overlap. Like, so like the sort of the connections that we were each talking about, the similarities are somewhat apparent. But it was interesting because it wasn't like I made work or made it really based on yours. It was like really we were each making our own separate pieces, but like bringing them together in the space, it really kind of naturally just like everything fit in a way. And yeah, like we came up with a preliminary layout of like, I got this corner, she's got this side, and you know, it's like trying to come up with yeah, an idea of like how much space each of us might have. But then it was like coming in here, I think maybe for me, so because I had like more of the sculptural pieces and objects where I was able to like fit them in certain areas later that weren't initially as planned out from the beginning, like kind of fill in some void spaces or like work around Tyanna's prints more so.
Interesting. And so, because it's an installation, you can't really say any of these pieces are the individual art pieces, but the entire interior of the gallery is the art piece in itself, because it's an installation. But you guys created the components beforehand, did it feel like collaborating together and situating them where they should belong was also part of the art making, part of the exhibition making?
Yeah, I think because Vanessa works so site specific, I also work site specific, but not like not the way she does. I just look at the space and go, okay, this needs to go here. And when I get there, I'll assemble it on the site and put it up. But for her, it was like she danced around 50 different ways in this one. This changed out so many times. It was like, looks good. She's like, no, that's one thing's off. I'm like, really? So for her, like just to see how she worked, but we still were thinking about, you know, the layout of where things are going to go.
Interesting. And so, about the title of the exhibition, I felt like it really fit well when I first heard it, even though that was before I actually saw the exhibition. Being familiar with your work individually, it felt like it fit perfectly, accumulating interiors. Could you talk a little bit about what that meant to you when you were settling on a name, accumulating interiors? How does that relate to your work?
I think we started out with like my work in particular. Vanessa was like introduced to my work, and I had to tell her like the background. I was like, well, everything I make is coming from personal narrative. Growing up in a foster care system, I'm coming from such deep, heavy, like, you know, stories. And she's like, interesting. So for me, like any type of furniture that my family would ever give me, if that ever were to happen, I would hold on to it. I would never destroy it. And Vanessa was like, yeah, I get stuff all the time. And I'm just like, I'll take it. And then she tears it apart. And it's like, I would never do that. So this idea of like how and I think coming up with this idea of accumulating, like me accumulating images, because I don't have actual objects. The childhood home that I grew up in was like, no longer exists, and the stuff in it no longer exists. So for me, I'm constantly accumulating in my head what that time was like. And so she's physically accumulating things that may or may not be that precious. I think, but for me, everything's precious.
Yeah. It's almost like I've gotten to the point where things aren't precious anymore to me, because I'm interested in collections and what other people like accumulate and bring together. And so a lot of what I collect is things that people have already discarded. So it's interesting, this idea of something not being precious anymore to them. It's like they've sort of let it go. But at one time, you know, it could have been like this, you know, sofa that they grew up with and their grandmother sat on it. And, you know, so it has this history still, but at the same time, it was like they're ready to get rid of it. So, so I think of accumulating in a different way, but then, but as more of a physical, and massive objects. And then everything in this exhibition is like interior domain or domestic based in a sense. So, yeah.
And when I first thought of the word interiors, I immediately thought like a domestic interior. And it reminds me of the first time we gathered here, right before the event got canceled. We had dinner here, right here in the gallery, and you were putting that chain together while we were eating dinner, almost like you were knitting, and there's something very familial about it, almost just talking, eating dinner, and you were putting the chain together. Do you think of domestic interiors in that way at times ever when creating your work or installations?
Oh yes, well, especially like wallpaper.
Yeah.
And like especially coming from like a screen printing background, the history of screen printing started with really decorative wallpaper that only the rich could enjoy. And no one had the rights to what a screen print was until like the 1950s. So thinking about the history of like printmaking in particular. But me wanting always to get back to the childhood home that we grew up in that no longer exists, which was like a beautiful home that I'll never be able to, you know, go back to. I am trying to think about what that space looks like and how I can reimagine the space, I think.
So Tyanna's work is heavily drawn from memory and a very personal place. I was wondering, when the pieces that you use, they were very intimate to somebody at some point. Do you feel a certain affinity for the objects you use, or are they just tools that you use to? Or somewhere in
I
between?
do feel affinity to them. It's like I'm drawn to certain forms or materials and color and texture. It's kind of formal properties of objects. But then I think about like how they were used or who loved them or, you know, who collected them. So like I still want to give them respect. It's like these things that were sort of cast aside and thrown out, like recombining them or keeping fragments of them and making these new forms and giving them a new life in a sense. So it's like this respect to the object, but then at the same time, like sometimes I'm like very relaxed about how they're maybe packed or like how I store them. It's like I'm not afraid of them getting broken, a lot of things, but it's also, and then I think of that also as a like that's just sort of progression of time, and that's how things decay and erode, and there's something like there's this quality to like the patina on objects, and it's just like part of the life cycle of the object and going into its sort of next stages.
Which is interesting, thinking of the word patina. Like, I purposely tried to patina the hot poems to make them old.
Yeah.
And you already get some of that naturally, but I was going back to another direction.
So is that sense of history or being lived in important to both of you, to each of you?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
But I thought it's interesting how well the dramatic reading worked here, because of it. You come in here and it looks like a scene, it feels like a scene or a setting. I also wanted to ask you, Tyanna, about the images in the prints. Are they usually or almost always drawn from a personal place?
Yeah, like trying to, I think growing up like in like particularly foster care and growing up with multiple families and not your like maternal family or your fraternal family. For me, it was it's like this whole like, I mean, how I grew up just didn't exist until I like got older and realized like, okay, so what did my grandmother look like? Trying to ask those questions to my mom, and she not wanting to really talk about it, but me saying I'm an artist, giving her that I'm an artist, and she goes, okay, fine. So that's the excuse that I throw out to make her feel comfortable telling me everything. So, and then and then I was like, well, who has the photos? And then I remember living with one of my aunts who had a lot of family photos, and then when I tried to acquire them, she made it very difficult. She did not want to release these images of people that I should have seen years ago, aunts and uncles, and people that I vaguely remember. But then she finally let me use some of the photographs, and it's interesting because that was one of the photos of my grandmother, who I did not get to meet. She died before I was born. And then that actual object was in my mom's living room, and she still has it. And I was like, what is this? I just picked it up. She was like, that's a collector's item. It's a lighter. And I was like, this is such an interesting, she's like, that's the last thing I have from your grandmother. So me connecting the two just made sense for me to think about the objects, and then using like the chain, and for me is maybe linking her to the objects. And my mom's obsessed with objects, like she does not think she's a hoarder. So I'm always like documenting the stuff she hoards and using it in my work, and like sifting through and trying to curate what I appreciated the stuff she's trying to keep around, and then why she's keeping it around, and specifically anything from her mother. So me thinking about this connection to objects and how we all have connections to objects because it makes the memory real.
And so we've sort of spoken about it before, but I think when people usually think of work at this scale, they generally think of paintings, but they're prints. Is that part of the reason why you do prints rather than as opposed to
like a traditional painting?
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting because they're considered monotypes or monoprints. They're one of a kind. In printmaking, usually people think of editions and you make multiples. In this case, I'm not making multiples. I'm focusing on one scene. So, and it's in the like gallery sense. My gallerist, he calls them paintings or screen print paintings, like Rauschenberg called his work screen print paintings, because I am working back into the work. Or, for instance, I'm applying like the background color by hand. So I think some people look at them as paintings, some people look at them as prints. I guess I don't really care. Like whichever way. I'm like, I don't know. It's ink on paper or acrylic on paper. What is a painting at the simplest form? Acrylic on something.
Right.
So,
But it's tied in a very real way to the photographs.
right. And I guess I'm thinking of printmaking in the sense of reproducing. So I'm reproducing these moments So I'm using the process also conceptual, thinking about what is the whole purpose of her making, and from my perspective, how can I push that in a way? I could just paint it, absolutely, but this idea of actually printing it is another thing.
And one more question about your work specifically. I've been meaning to ask you about the combs that are lined up on the walls. Can you talk a bit about those?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was thinking about, so I was sort of telling this narrative together, and then that piece was more like, I've been working with the hot comb as an image for a while, and the hot comb is this object that still exists. It's very interesting. To explain it, because I realized like not everybody knows what a hot comb is, because if you don't have this kind of hair, why would you know? So then it's like, okay, so this hot comb, you know, it's been around for years, way before Madam C.J. Walker actually patented and all this other stuff. People from African diaspora use it in France to straighten their hair, only to braid the hair, not to keep it straight. So I did a lot of research on the hot comb, because if you're an African American female in America or anywhere else, you grew up with this hot comb. And it was just literally just to straighten the hair. And it's an old, vintage way of doing it. Of course, there are flat irons. There are so many modern ways to do it. But for some reason, after the age of 50, Black women go back to the hot comb. And I've done a lot of research. I'm like, in my grandmother, like, she had hot combs that my mother got to keep around. My mother does not like a flat iron. But we're like in the flat iron stage. But then I see a hot comb, and I'm like, actually, the hot comb straightens the hair much better than the flat iron. So thinking about this connection between like the older Black woman in the family and what she would use, but also be using that at a young age, from 6 until like 10, and then I was like, okay, no more hot comb. This idea. So that's a very like searing memory. Literally, like it physically hurts to get your hair, you know, straightened because it's direct heat. You put it on actual fire, and then you put it on your hair. Like, it makes no sense. And so there are many like we grew up getting burned in our ear, but our hair was really straight, and that's all we cared about. So for me, I'm just kind of figuring out a way to tie my like connection to an object into the connection with my grandmother and her, and how that works out.
And Vanessa, about your work, this couch reminds me a lot of my family, although it would have been covered with the plastic. But have you ever worked on incorporating your own furniture or furniture from your own family? And is it any different at all?
I've had a few things from my family that really just weren't precious, or they just seemed like kind of any object that I would find or any furniture that I would find. But I do have this dining set that was my grandmother's, well, my grandparents, and they had it for 40 years, and it was like this idea of furniture as this symbolism for maybe staying in one place. Like, they got this dining set, and it sort of symbolized when they bought their home, and like once they got it, they didn't move anymore because it was so big, like they couldn't be transferred anywhere else. Yeah, and they loved their home and all that too, but it was like, it just fit into the room. And so they moved into a new place, and the dining set didn't fit, and so I have it. And it was interesting, like, they know what I do, but they still thought that I wanted it for my house. and I would, but it's at the same time, like, I also want to make something out of it. It's like making this new relic, or like making this like an object that like symbolizes what like how they looked at it, and how they looked at it, and how it was so precious to them. So it's almost like a new heirloom that I'm thinking of making. So I haven't made that yet, but I've had it for almost 3 years, and I'm just holding on to it, like the right place to put it. And like, so there are these, like, in ways it's precious to me. So this is like one of the first sort of pieces of furniture or sets that I've used that have this like a background in a way for me. And so I guess that's why I'm holding on to it. Like, I want it to be right, you know, like I don't want to
Just chop it up.
Yeah, just chop it up.
Not like other people's.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting you mentioned heirloom, because that's a word that came to mind when I looked at both of your work before writing the essay. Something that is important enough to a family to pass down rather than to ever sell or give away to anybody else. Is that something that comes to mind when creating either your work, the idea of heirlooms, or I mean even in an abstract way?
Yeah. I would say definitely for me, because I always wish there was something. I wish I could have met my grandmother, or she could have met me as a baby. But like, oh, I'm gonna leave this for her. Like I wish I have those moments where I'm like, man, I wonder what she would have left with me. What she have left made it felt. So then I think about the way I piece my pieces together, very full-like. So I am thinking, I'm constantly thinking about what would be the thing that she would have left for me, and then I try to make it happen.
Sometimes I thought of heirloom pieces of furniture as almost a burden on the family. Like this dining room set, like no one else in my family wanted it. It was too much. So, and it's like something that like everyone in the family maybe has memories for, and they want to keep it, but it might not fit with their home decor, or they just they don't want it. They don't want to get rid of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought of heirlooms also in the way of the stories, the context we're sort of going into, that heirlooms can't help but pass on to the
Right.
family. I also wanted to ask you about your work, Vanessa. You have a very specific medium, basically interior furnishings. You don't deviate much from that. Do you do that intentionally, would you say? Or do you strictly try to stick to that, or is it just something that happens in creative work?
It's a bit of all of those, where it's it often is what I look for, and what's been easy to find, and it's the way that it's that, and I like this idea of making these interior settings within gallery or museum spaces, and it's this different experience of these very common objects and material like curtains and sofas and rugs that are like twisted and sort of transformed in a way, and it's like a new experience for the viewer and for me, a way of seeing them. But I have thought of some outdoor pieces, and so I feel like this is what I'm doing now, and yeah, I'll branch out into some other types of materials, but yeah, it's definitely intentional now, and I'm just kind of drawn to this, to these forms and to the environments that I can make with them.
So before we started tonight, John and I were speaking about the nature of installations. How do you guys approach installations differently as opposed to, say, when you create a print or a sculpture?
For me, I guess I am thinking of wall space, because I am working two-dimensionally. So I have to like just measure out the walls from the height to I'm constantly measuring wall and floor, just making sure. And then I make the piece based on the size that I'm working within. And then that's it. But for me, it's much simpler, I think, than the way you work. I just go, okay, this size look good on this size wall. Or how big can I go?
Yeah, and then for me, it's so much about adapting the work to the specific location, and like what could be hung, or where can something be hung, or are there any like odd corners or odd spaces that could be addressed, or something could fit in there. And then it is like I said before, where a lot of my process is bringing a lot, bringing usually more than I need into a space, and kind of editing through it and kind of building some of the sculptural pieces and building it on site. And then with the installation too, it's looking at it from all angles. So it's constantly moving around the room and seeing how things fit together and all of this three-dimensional view.
And because it's
I didn't mean to interrupt. No, at some point, or it's not me, you're leading into it, but I'd love to open the discussion up to the audience as well. So I'll let you guide us in that direction, Danny.
perfect. Actually, it's perfect time. If anybody has any questions for either artist, I'd love to take any for Vanessa and Tyanna.
I wondered, in making this group exhibition, did you take into account or think about, or how did you think about the intent intended audience. This is a campus, students, and there's going to be 450 students walking in here writing papers about this stuff this week, next week. So did you think about that at all? And did you adapt in any way, or?
In a way, I thought of it as just because it was kind of interior-based and home references and house, domestic. I thought that, well, maybe some students from that maybe aren't from this area, that are maybe a little homesick, like will have these like reminders of, oh, like my grandmother and things like this, or you know, so it's like, in a way to sort of bring someone back to some memories that they have of the interior or like the home type of spaces.
I guess for me, I'm thinking, I guess I was thinking about the process because I know there's a lot of artists that's going to be in here looking, and I was thinking about making sure that there's different things happening, so it's not just like this, oh, you know, works on paper and a sculpture, but then it's all of that. So then it's like, oh, there's a way you can work without feeling confined to a one medium. So we did talk about that.
Yeah.
Making sure that it was versatile and diversity, like very diverse.
Right. Like there's something for multiple interests. You know, rather not just sculpture, but yeah, also theater. Turned out well.
I've been thinking a lot as you've been talking about this idea of bringing the home into the sort of sterile, neutral space of the gallery. This work isn't actually very cozy. Yes, it evokes memories, but I don't know that kind of cozy domesticity is what's going on here. I tend to find myself looking at change or looking at cut in the furniture, wondering if that thing's going to fall on me, or, am I going to get stuck in the drapery, or, there's a little bit of a feeling that this stuff is kind of going to attack me or confront me in some kind of way. Or those references with the hot coats of difficult experiences or memories. What does it say about home in that I'm having that reaction to the sort of anti-cozy domesticity here?
I think for me, in a way, it's sort of pushing this idea of unfamiliarity with these familiar type of objects. So it's trying to make something that looks like, oh, okay, I can sort of get close to this carpet, but at the same time it's hanging on the wall, and it just doesn't. There's something not right about it. So it's playing into this uncanniness a little bit, and then I thought about some of these discarded objects that I just sort of pick up and regroup together as almost coming into a new form and developing their own method of defense, and like able to like prevent themselves from being thrown away again. So I'm trying to give them that power, like very subtly.
I think you're doing it. Yeah, good.
Well, I think it's interesting you read that because like the uncomfortable or the, it's not cozy. Because I think specifically about my grandmother's experience in a house that I remember like very briefly was not a home. And actually when I talked to like my family, they're like, yeah, it was a lot of domestic abuse. It was bad. There was, my grandfather died of drinking himself to death. And then when he passed away, she passed away. And then everybody did drugs in the house. So like it was not comfortable, right? But for me, I'm like, I don't want to know that part. Like just tell me the good part. But then the truth is that it's not all good.
So one other thing that strikes me about seeing both of your work together is that they have similar color schemes going on, like these yellows and like that flowery piece over there, and these like old greens and the browns. So I guess what I'm wondering is was this color scheme intentional, or did it just kind of happen coincidentally?
Very coincident.
Yeah, for instance, like as you were unrolling some of your prints, like, hey, that color's over there. Just
Yeah, spikes in the pants.
right.
Like, what the?
So it was.
I think John, I think you said
I'm
that.
masterminding the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. And we've been matches.
No.
Maybe it's a topic of like a certain time
I
period.
think so.
I mean, working on the print or working on a section of the installation, do you have like an aha moment? Does it come like, okay, I'm done with that? Or do you have a sense of, I'm done working on it for now?
I do have an aha moment. Like I have this, it's almost like this point where, hard to explain in a way, but it's like my eye could rest. Like I feel like this bit of calmness, like settled. Like there's, like after sort of moving around something or in the space for a while, and it's hard to say, but it's like this moment where it just feels right and stops.
It's interesting because I also started a graphic design background. So for me, I am working on the computer first. So all that planning that Vanessa's doing in person, I'm doing before I even put it on paper. For me, it's all about composition and color. So I'm going back to the basics of anything that was working from two-dimensional. Going back to the basics, and I go, that feels good. But adding the chain was interesting because it was too short, and I was like, that's a little bright composition. I just make some more links, and I'm making more links, and we're eating dinner. No, not long enough, because it has to be that right composition so that I get that same feeling of, okay, now that makes sense. Go walk away.
The nature of print, it has to be very composed, obviously, before you get to it. But your work feels carefully composed in a way too, Vanessa. Would you characterize it that way?
Yeah, I would, and in the same way that I think about composition a lot, in a similar way, on all sides of it. It's interesting to like use some of these objects that are maybe grouped together in a way that become composed, but like initially they could just look